Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second session on Be the Ultimate Assistant Speed Mentoring with Bonnie and Vickie. Hi, guys. I'm Vickie Sokol Evans here in Austin, Texas.
Yes, and I am Bonnie Low-Kramen, coming to you from my home office in Ponte Vedra, Florida. And for those of you who don't know Vickie and I very well, I want to tell you a little bit about us. I worked as the personal assistant to Oscar-winning actress Olympia Dukakis for 25 years. And then 9 years ago, left that job in order to teach and speak all around the world. And I had a dream to design a 2-day workshop called Be the Ultimate Assistant Workshop. So that led me to this lovely lady who I am presenting with today. Vic and I have known each other for over 10 years, and she is a former assistant herself. And what was true 10 years ago is true today, which is I knew instantly that anybody who touches a computer needs to know what this lady knows. She trained at Buckingham Palace. She is the trainer to Bill Gates' team. And the administrative profession of the world is so fortunate to have her as our teacher and our guide when it comes to productivity and technology. So thank you, Vickie.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you are welcome. So let's go to the next slide, Vic. Oh, do you have something to say?
I was going to say that you and I teach the 2-day Be the Ultimate Assistant workshop. So it's been an honor being right beside you teaching that for the past, 9 years? Is that right? Yeah,
we've been doing that all over the world. And you know, on this call today, it's Administrative Professionals Month. And in a couple of weeks, there'll be APW, Administrative Professionals Week. And I am so thrilled to say that we have over 1,200 people registered for this call today from 32 countries. Oh my gosh, folks, if that isn't testament to say that we're not alone in this. You might be working alone in your house, but we're not alone in this struggle we're in right now. I want to welcome those of you back who were with us 2 weeks ago. I want to welcome our BTUA students and our colleagues and our friends and people we've never met. We have one of our dearest friends is on the call right now. I spoke with her this morning from the UK, Lucy Breezier. Many of you know her as the producer of Executive Secretary Live, and she is such a strong advocate for assistants all over the world. So, you know, together we can change the world. We can really change what this thing is going to look like to the degree that we have some measure of control. Let's take a moment to send positive energy and strength to everyone who is fighting this virus and to those people who are supporting those who are sick with this virus, because there's no getting around it. The numbers are frightening, and the situation is emerging. So we're sending lots of positive energy to all of you out there, and I know we have some on the call right now. Let us also express gratitude to those first responders and healthcare workers, doctors and nurses, and the firefighters and the police, and all of those people who are risking their lives in order for us, many of us, most of us, to stay at home and shelter in place and do what we have to do to make this virus go away. So we thank them, and I suspect we're all going to find ways to thank these people in these days and months coming up. And then, you know, it's not only those folks who are going out there every day. I've spoken to assistants this week who are the one or two people are the only people going into their offices because they are so critical to the running of their companies. We let us send a lot of support and energy to them, these one young man said to me, well, you know what? He doesn't have a partner or a wife, and he's single, so he feels like he should be the one to go in to the office. And I think that's really brave and worth mentioning and applauding, right? Okay, so here we are.
Okay.
Let us move on and talk about what we're going to do today.
Yes, thanks, Bonnie, for that. And I echo Bonnie's sentiments and gratitude to everyone that's doing everything they can to help with the pandemic. So what is speed mentoring? For those of you who know Bonnie, know that she has this insatiable appetite to learn from each one of you, to understand who you are. And during her live events, whenever she's at conferences, she generously offers to do a speed mentoring table and have anyone that wants to join her sit around the table with her, and you have 1 hour. And as a group, because group mind allows you to solve problems a lot easier, then everyone contributes to the solution. So it's not just Bonnie adding solutions, it's everyone around the table adding solutions. So it makes it more powerful. And that's what this session is all about, is allowing us to all provide solutions. So we have a little bit of different format than we had last time, and so we'll talk to you about that. So let me explain to you what happened last session. We had 437 questions submitted before the session that Colleen on our team managed and organized for us. And then during the session, we had over 500 submissions. So I noticed that some of you are already submitting questions and responses and saying hello to us on the side over here. So, and today we had 488 questions submitted prior to the class. And so we are pulling from that list. What we've done, Colleen has generously organized the list. Let me show you what it looks like. And you will all have access to this. And we are protecting your privacy. So there are no names in the list. Let me see if you guys can see this. Yeah. So this document, we'll make sure everyone gets an access to this. It is a live document. We are adding questions and responses as you submit them, either before the session or after the session. I'm going to turn on the navigation pane. Under the View tab is Navigation pane here. And then you can see all the different questions and responses. I'm going to collapse all. How are you managing your stress? How are you keeping communication open? What are you doing to stay engaged? So if you want answers, here are all the categorized answers to that. So I'm really proud of this compilation, and we'll keep adding to that. So with that said, make sure it is back here. In order to keep this organized and keep it going, anytime you have a question for Bonnie, because Colleen is managing the Q&A at the behind the scenes, if you have a question for Bonnie, put BQ, B as in Bonnie, VQ, V as in Vickie. You have a question for me? And then if you're responding to our questions, always put a B for Bonnie in front of your response, or V for Vickie if you have a new question here. And then Colleen will help manage that towards the end of the session or during the piece. So with that said, I wanted to make sure they are recognized. Our team with Colleen Dunn, she's based in Columbus. I'm in Austin. Bonnie's in Florida, but her assistant, Jen Wilner, is in Edison, New Jersey. And then Bonnie's partner, Robert Sanders, our IT guy, our tech guy, is always on the ready to help us with any IT stuff. So we're so grateful for them. Yes. All right, Bon, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my webcam so that you can take over from here. And nope.
Yeah, thanks.
Hold on 1 second. Wait, hold on. I did the wrong thing. And Bonnie loves it when things go wrong tech-wise, when things go wrong with me tech-wise.
Only the small things.
Yeah.
So, we are going to have some great fun today with our celebrity guest, but let me just say that, the overriding theme that we have to have in this session is about solving problems and getting the facts and preparing for the future, which is so volatile at the moment. It seems to be changing by the day. So if there's anything that the assistants of the world need to do, is to find the facts out, do the research, figure out what's the latest, greatest. Vickie's going to tell us about the technology about that. But Vic, if we can go to the next slide, we need resources. The resources are the best that we can find, and these are those resources: the World Health Organization, the USDA, FDA, the CDC, and Homeland Security. That these websites have been getting updated to try very hard to stay current with, do you wear masks? Do you not wear masks? Do you, who's sheltering in place and what's open and what isn't open? My own family is in New Jersey, and they're now mandating masks in supermarkets. And so there's a lot of information out there. And as always, it's the assistants who are going to be relied upon for the latest, greatest. That's something that might have been true yesterday may not be true today. So Vickie and I wanted as much as possible to offer resources that will support you not only today and not only during the replay, but for these next weeks and months. And we think these 4 websites is certainly a good start there. Okay. So Vickie, you're going to take us through the poll results that our participants, we have over 700 people on the call right this minute from 32 countries. Let's see what you all had to say.
Okay, so last time we took up time during our session to ask you these questions. This time we got smart about it and asked you during the registration process. So thank you for everyone who responded to the questions. So you can see here that the majority of you, 38, so it's about 60% of you are between 6 and 10 on a stress level, 10 being the highest stress level. Some of the items we've seen on the registrations, things like job loss. Bonnie mentioned somebody isn't able to go to their dad's funeral potentially.
Right, and another person is going through a divorce right now, and she's lost her job, so she's looking for work, dealing with that, and having to deal with this pandemic. The stresses are coming from the idea that many assistants feel like they don't have enough work to do, and that's leading to feelings of insecurity. So the money is absolutely an issue, big time. Because many assistants have been asked to take pay cuts, 20% cuts across the board. And, the supermarket is still wanting their money when you manage to get inside and buy things. Lucy was telling me in the UK, they've now said, if you go to the supermarket, you have to buy a minimum of 30 British pounds of food so that you're not going in for just one-offs. So this is the kind of thing that we need to share with each other. The anxiety is coming from, lack of communication with executives. And how about the anxiety of just working at home and never doing that before and feeling isolated and alone?
Yeah. And we'll talk about that when we come back to you.
Yeah.
We asked the question if you have the virus. So a couple, maybe 1 or 2 people said yes. A higher number of people said maybe, and then thankfully almost 92% said no. Do you personally know somebody? So a third of you.
This number is higher than last time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then our last question we asked before, I asked 2 technical questions, which I'll show you guys the results later. But what is your role? So almost 80% of you are an assistant. Almost 12%. Yeah. You're an assistant, and you actually manage other assistants. Okay.
But I love the fact that we have non-assistants on the call as well. I believe that as we move forward in this workplace, it's going to take all of us working together to figure this all out. So we need leaders talking to us in HR and recruiters. So we have to find ways to bridge those gaps. Okay. Thank you for answering those poll questions, folks. So yeah, it's true. We actually do have a celebrity guest with us and his assistant. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today, so honored to have celebrity interior designer Nate Berkus and his assistant, his director of operations, Kelly ENGSTROM. So I want to tell you a little bit about Nate and Kelly. First, I'll tell you about Kelly. She and Nate have been working together since 2010. She also happens to be a really good friend of mine. She's a past president of New York Celebrity Assistants, which is an organization that I'm a part of as well. She's been an ELS presenter, ELS forum presenter, and she's the mom of two beautiful daughters, Nora and Michaela. And Kelly is going to be joining us from her home in Cleveland, Ohio. Nate Berkus, he established his award-winning interior design firm at the age of 24. And over the past 25 years, his approachable and elevated philosophy has transformed countless homes around the world. And through his design work, his collections, his books, his television shows, and media appearances. Ever since Nate appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2002, he's become one of the world's most recognizable interior designers. Nate is joining us from his home in New York, and both he and Kelly are going to be talking to us about home offices. Can we give a huge virtual welcome to Nate and Kelly? Yay! Yay! Please turn on your webcams, guys. This is when there we have Kelly. Everybody meet Kelly, and there's Nate. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. So honored. Thank you. Take it away.
Nope. Hold on, Nate. We can't hear you.
How's that?
There you are.
Okay. Hi,
yep,
everybody.
gotcha.
Bonnie, thank you for that beautiful introduction. When Kelly asked me if I would be willing to do this, and of course I had to clear my extremely busy schedule to make it happen, I said immediately yes. And the reason is that twofold. One, my relationship with Kelly over the several years that we've now worked together has transcended, I think, like many of you, the typical assistant boss relationship. We are friends, we are family, and it's an honor for me to contribute to anything that Kelly is doing in her professional world. And then also, you know, I was raised believing you better know the assistant, you better know the person that holds the keys, that unlocks all of the doors and has the ear of the world at large if you really want to get anything done. And that's true for both my household and my businesses, but also true on behalf of many of the design projects that we do come through via Kelly, via the Celebrity Design Assistants group. When I've moved, which Kel, how many times have I moved my household now since we've been working together?
I think I've done 12 moves for you in 10 years.
Kel is an expert. Some of those were cross country and back. But you know, you need stuff all the time, and there's no group as resourceful that I found via Kelly as the group of assistants that Kelly is a part of and has relationships with, in terms of finding everything you need wherever you land, whatever time of day it is, even during a global pandemic. So I welcome everybody who's chosen to join us today. And Kel, let's start our dog and pony show, shall we?
All right, let's do it. I mean, we can do a lot of things, but I can't seem to change your name to not be Kelly ENGSTROM in your screen, but
doesn't make a
we know it's your name. Thanks so much. And, you know, we talked a little bit with Bonnie and Vickie about the home office. You know, Nate's a pretty good designer, and so he has some great tips. Yeah, it's not bad for creating a home office, which I had to do for the first time last summer when I moved to Cleveland and Nate moved to New York. We both were living in Los Angeles. And here, you know, a lot of us have had to create your work environments at home sort of on the fly, like, you know, under duress. So you're not setting up the whole room and shopping for things and able to do all of that. So we have a few easy, accessible ideas. So if Vickie, would you pop up our slide, our inspirational slide?
Great.
Yeah.
So, one thing as the world has changed, and as Bonnie was saying, is changing so rapidly every day practically. It's if you have a space in your home, we use some interior images that we've pulled from our portfolio and some things that have been published and haven't been published, but create a functional and personal work environment at home. And as you can see from the image on the left, that's really just a corner of a room with a really comfortable chair, with a space that you can sort of go to when you are doing joining webinars, when you are Zoom meetings, whatever it is, or if you have just sort of a designated space in your home that can be quiet and effective for you to bring your work to. You don't have to, no one wants to see all your junk. No one, just bring what you need for that phone call. But it's really nice to have a designated space like that so that there's a comfortable kind of serene area. I know kids are home, I know schools are closed, but even if you take a chair out of your living room and push it into the back corner of a hallway or next to a window somewhere, that can be super helpful.
Yeah, it's about doing the best you can with what you have and carving out that little nook where you can be productive, and just kind of coping with everything. And there's a beautiful tree there, so you can grab some greenery, if you're taking the kids out for a walk. And the daffodils are coming up here in Cleveland. We have a bunch coming up in our yard, despite a snow flurry this morning. So you can grab some of that, put it next to you. Yeah, I know. And even the art projects you're doing with the kids. I have a couple up on my wall, if I can get it over there. Got those going. And putting something pretty up. I also love a bulletin board, so I have that behind me, along with one of my favorite NATE Berkus products, the tortoise shell from his first Target collection. So it looks kind of cool on a Zoom background. Yeah, it's vintage. It's vintage now.
It is. So are we, by the way. The other thing that I think is important, and Kelly was mentioning, but we do have, most of us can still go outside, and so a vase that's under your kitchen sink that flowers came in, or in your garage or whatever, go cut some branches off from outside. You can do it every couple of days, but bringing greenery in so that somebody can see something alive. I'm actually sequestered in my bedroom right now because both of my children are downstairs. It is not nap time, but it's nice when you're speaking, and especially when you're presenting, or even doing an end of the day call with your boss. It's great to have greenery, something alive around you. It makes people happy to see it.
It does. And then there's, if you're sitting in front of your bookshelves, you can change them up to be part of your home office. Like if you're in front of bookshelves in your living room or dining room, or even your bedroom, the image on the right with the chair is someone's living room with a desk. And you can change those up and put in your family pictures and make it look pretty. You have it be in front of you, behind you. You can use it as a backdrop. That always works really well.
And also you can turn your chair so that is behind you, as Kelly was saying, as a backdrop, but you can cheat. Those shelves were styled by me, and I was up on a ladder drinking tequila, I will also add, but you can do the bottom 3 shelves. It's only as wide as your screen needs to be. So take your pretty things, take the junk that's been sitting there for years, move that away, and create sort of a happy backdrop so that even when you're looking at yourself, in the camera, what you're seeing behind you is something that feels edited and clean and organized and brings you joy.
Yeah, perfect. Vickie, I thought I'd check in and see if you had any questions on the home design front before we moved into a different topic.
I'm so glad you did. So Diana says, I live in an apartment that doesn't have a separate room where I can establish a home workspace. What's the best way to set up a space like you guys are talking about? That's from Diana.
So, hi, Diana. So one of the things that I think can be really important is not everything needs to be a full-on desk. If you keep a filing cabinet in the closet while you're working at home, or you just have an area where you can keep your paperwork and all of that stuff, that's great. But look at like consoles. Is there a console that you can pull a chair up? A console is different than a desk because it's not as deep, and it typically doesn't have a ton of storage. But the benefit of it is that they're usually about 14 to 16 to 18 inches deep and very long and narrow. So you have a nice surface to spread out stuff while you're working, but it can tuck in a hallway, it can tuck against a wall, it can tuck underneath a window, and doesn't take a lot of floor space. It is definitely nice. I think one of the reasons we're all kind of going crazy is that we all feel a little bit disorganized. And it is really nice to have a designated piece of furniture pushed somewhere, even if it's your main living space, where you don't have to, where you can keep what you were working on the day before when you are watching Netflix 5 feet away.
Yeah, and I worked at several consoles in your homes, Nate, because they look better than a full-size desk. So they work, they're great, they're easy.
And then one more question about design or office space. So my office is my kitchen, Sandy says, so I can stand at the counter. Any thoughts on how to improve the background when you're in your kitchen?
You know, I mean, I've always had a long-held conviction that every horizontal surface in a room is an opportunity to do something pretty. So I have framed photos of my family, and I put all of our cooking utensils in this old wood vase that I found years ago at a flea market. Just pay attention to sort of what's behind you. And this might be an opportunity, since we are all kind of trapped at home, to clean off your surfaces, your kitchen counters, put things away that don't need to be out, add some things that make you happy, whether that's a small vase or a juice glass with flowers in it from the garden or from the neighbor's garden, which we've been known to do out here in Long Island. But it really is sort of I would just say clean it up. It's fine that it's your kitchen. That's great. If there's room for a comfortable chair, or even a kitchen chair, a dining chair that you can choose to sit or stand, that's also terrific. But I would say it's more about taking the opportunity to wipe the surfaces clean and put back only the things that you really want to be dealing with right now.
Great, that's perfect. Okay, and lots of questions about your partnership. So do you want to move on to the next slide?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. All right.
Okay.
So go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
All right. Kelly and I, in preparation for joining all of you today, were talking this past week about, what we thought we could communicate that would be important and also relevant at the moment that we're all going through. And one thing that's very interesting about our relationship is that although we have worked together since 2010, right, Cal?
Yep.
Since 2010.
Almost 10 years.
We moved across the country together to Los Angeles about 3.5 years ago. And then I moved back to New York 4 years ago. And I moved back to New York City with my family about a year ago, or will be a year this summer. And Kelly had a decision to make because LA wasn't really working for anyone. We didn't really love living there for reasons I don't need to bore anybody with. But the choices that Kelly had were either move home to Cleveland or move back to Brooklyn. And I refused to be a part of that decision-making process. So what I told Kelly at the time was, you have to make the decision that's right for you and your family. We've worked together long enough that your job is safe wherever you go. We can figure it out. We will figure it out, but I want you to make the right decision for you. And Kelly ultimately decided to move back to Cleveland and try it out with her husband and 2 kids. That was over a year ago, long before Corona, long before, we were all sort of working remotely. And we decided that we wanted to be really honest with everybody about what worked and what didn't. And we've been through this, the separation, the insecurities, the questions that we had both for ourselves and for each other. So the first thing that we needed to do after we both got settled and life still continued while moving trucks were showing up in Ohio and in New York City and all of that. But about, was it a month, Kel, into after the move that we
yeah, it was about a month after I moved to Cleveland. Like, I spent the summer in LA after moving Nate to New York, Nate and his family to New York. And then I was in LA for about 3 months after that. And then my family moved to Cleveland, and it was September.
Okay.
It was kind of like where it kicked into something.
So what happened, what happened, and I'm sure all of you can tell from the fact that we're even willing to, speak so openly about this. And again, our intention is, I know a lot of you are probably feeling disconnected from your principal employer and wondering how to potentially correct that and ride out this isolation and social distancing and all of that. But it wasn't working for us. I started making up things that that I thought might not be getting done. The tone changed in our phone conversations. I would go to bed at night wondering if certain things had happened. And this is after, 9 years of a relationship where pretty much Kelly and I have always been very accountable to one another. I would say to her, what happened with this? And she'd say, I made a mistake. Or she'd say to me, what happened with this? And I'd say, I think I might be losing my mind. I know you told me to do that, and I just simply didn't do it. So we've always gone through this we've always had this level of accountability. And I think what happened was I started feeling as a boss super insecure about what Kelly was actually doing all day. And Kel, you can speak to how you were feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling like I didn't want to bother Nate. Like, it was a stressful time during, moving, resettling. We both have 2 young kids. It's sort of this whole new world where it was like, well, you don't need to hear from me. I'm getting it done. But I didn't want to bother Nate. I didn't want to add to anything of the stress of like moving and getting settled back in New York. And I felt like I couldn't help a lot of the time. Like, there was a lot of stress that Nate was carrying, and usually I'm there to help carry it, and I wasn't, and it was really tricky. And we had to adapt to that part of not being able to just pop in to see each other every day and say like, hey, did you do, what's up with that, or can you help me with this? Both ways. I need you for 5 minutes. We need to get on this call together.
Who wants a coffee?
Nate, how are you going to?
Let's go have a taco. I mean, all this stuff like that we were used to in LA and in New York prior to that was just instantly gone. And I think, Kel, you had mentioned to me, you didn't know because of my sort of behavior if you had made the wrong decision to move back, like if I was lying and said like it doesn't matter to me, but tricky like it actually did. And the truth is like,
right, yeah.
The truth is, so here we were, these 2 people who have a beautiful working relationship, 10-year working relationship, totally insecure. I'm feeling guilty. I don't want to approach Kelly on asking all these sort of things that seem very nitpicky to me as a boss, because I felt like Kelly would receive that as I don't trust her anymore, or I don't think she's paying attention to what needs to be done anymore. And that wasn't how I felt, but I couldn't get past these questions, these just constant questions. Is this happening? When did this happen? What did that person say? And we were mourning, in all fairness, I think the other aspects of our relationship that had kept us so close for all this time, the proximity, the fact that, as Kelly just mentioned, hey, I need you for 5 minutes. Hey, can you just look at this thing on my phone and say yes or no? Do you like these big earrings that I just bought? Are you going to finish that taco? Like,
Right.
all of that stuff is part of what all of you share and what we share. So the first bullet point in a very long-winded way is have the hard conversation. I picked up the phone, I called Kelly, I said, this isn't working. I can't worry about your feelings right now because I have to just express how I'm feeling right now. And then let's sort this out because where are you? Like, where are you coming in? And it took me a month to pick up the phone. And, even though we were talking and obviously updating each other and all of that, it took me a month to gather up the courage to say, hey, like, this might not have been the best decision. I went into this with 100% transparency. I'm happy for you to have moved to Cleveland, but it's not working.
Yeah, and my great fear in all of it is that Nate would resent me for that decision, because it's not that it wasn't a decision made lightly, of course, and we were both operating with all these assumptions and questions in our heads for months, weeks, and so finally we addressed the elephant in the room, which was our discomfort with the whole thing, and we had the conversation, and it was tough, and it was a long phone call, but we did it, and we came up with, after kind of airing all of that out, we came up with ways to make the relationship productive again and to make it more honest and work for both of us. It had to work for both of us. It didn't. Nate was very clear. It didn't just have to work for him. It had to work for me too.
You were very clear. Too.
Well, yeah. But that's where you get after working with someone for so long, and we're here to hopefully to shorten the learning curve as we're all adapting. You're not in the office with your boss right now. So we created a few routines that actually help us a lot with answering those questions and taking away like the weird assumption, nebulous thoughts that we were both having. And we created some routines. So yeah, go ahead.
So I feel like the net of our conversation, after going through sort of the accusatory, the fear-based, the insecurities, the do you resent me for making this move? No, but I resent that I don't know what this is, or what we came up with was a system that works for us that you can think about, especially at this time, obviously. But we realized that we were under communicating, that we didn't have routines set up that would make us both feel comfortable. And so even though it felt ridiculous, I asked Kelly to give me an end of the day report because we were thousands of miles away from each other. And I felt that at the end of the day, if I could look on my phone and read what had happened that day and who had been interacted with that day and what had been accomplished and what was pending still, that I, as a triple Virgo and largely a lunatic in many aspects, would be able to let that go. And as I had for 9 years prior and left it in Kelly's lap, I would be able to let it go if I saw it in writing. And that revolutionized the way we both communicated with one another. Kelly then suggested that we come up with routines, that we would have these check-ins bi-weekly, which combined with the end of the day sort of status reports, ended up working for us. It was enough for us to be on the phone twice a week, also to anticipate that questions would be answered 2 times a week in person or on the phone or via FaceTime, so that all of those little things that build up, which your boss is going to ask about at some point, like, hey, what happened to the lamps I'm trying to ship from Greece in the middle of a global pandemic? Or did anyone
ever reach out? That's really just your question.
Yeah, maybe it is just mine. What happened to my kidney transplant?
Right.
But that knowing that there was a twice a week for some that would work. Maybe it's once a day, maybe it's 3 times a week or once a week, depending on your role, but and what suits you. But we realized that would take the stress off of both of us. that we would have a concentrated time, since we didn't have those quick catch-ups and casual interactions any longer.
Right. And the beauty of it is I have access and management in Nate's calendar. So it's like we always have that time. We schedule it. Many of you I know have access to your executive's calendar, and so you book it in and then you stick to it. If something comes up where, one of us has to take a kid to a doctor, that's one thing, but we're pretty good about sticking to it, and especially now because nobody's running out to meetings, nobody's got too many phone calls coming up, but we're getting there, and it's worked really well for Nate and me over the past 7 months, 8 months since we started doing it, and now it's a routine, and it's nothing that we think about and we rely on, and it's been really helpful, and it's also been really helpful for us sort of in this new situation where I'm remote and I'm staying remote, but the rest of Nate's company is also remote. So, we're kind of translating some of those concepts into how the other staff interact with each other, and we're doing twice weekly company Zoom meetings, which sometimes feels like overkill, but it's actually wonderful. Like it's great, it's reliable, where everybody in the company gets to see Nate for a little bit and hash things out when we need to.
And then that all leans towards the third bullet point. We suggest leaning towards over communicating at this time. It might feel like you're bombarding your executive with too much information, but I can promise you, you're not. Especially if it's in the form of an email or a text, just to say, hey, wanted to let you know, heard from so-and-so, their office is also closed, heard from this, they aren't working currently, but plan to be back up in May. I put a note in my calendar to reach out when they're supposed to open again. We'll keep you updated, whatever it is. There's something incredibly intensely comforting about knowing that life hasn't ground to a halt, and even if certain things and projects and initiatives and whether it's personal or professional have been paused, it's incredibly comforting to know that as soon as those opportunities open up again, your team is ready, able, and willing to address all of those things. And so Kelly and I have done a lot in the 4 weeks today or tomorrow that I've been in quarantine, but and we have lists going. We're doing a lot of digital cleanup right now, cleaning house with our stores where we sell antiques and furniture on First Dibs, and our internal organizational website, which we use for furniture and decoration and paintings, which is called Sortly, which, by the way, if any of you don't know about that app, let me just give you a glowing recommendation, and I know Kelly will second this. It's an online inventory portal for every single thing we own, whether it's a watch or a painting or a picture frame or whatever. If it has any value, and that information is all stored with the point of purchase and description and value, and also shared with insurance, which is great. But anyway, so we've been cleaning that up and making sure that all those entries are perfect. And we have a list going, a running list going of when this world opens back up to us, non-virtually, what we'll be able to address as soon as that starts again.
Yeah, which feels really good. It's like you're setting yourself up, and then you, like we said, when we come back to sort of normal routines and getting back out in the world, you know what you need to do. Nobody's kind of standing there going, well, now what? Where do we start? Exactly. And then just, to wrap up our communication slide here is, communicating now, it doesn't have to be all business, because it's not all business when you're hanging out in the office together. We love tacos, we love Dairy Queen, we talk about what we're eating in quarantine. It's great. We talk about the shows we're watching and our kids, and, both Nate's daughter Poppy and my daughter Nora have bikes with training wheels, and I'm sure those are going to be coming off very soon during all of this.
Probably Nora first, in all fairness. But no, I mean, it really is important. Like, don't forget the fun part of your in-person relationship. I mean, send the funny video, send the meme, text the meme. Sorry, text the meme. But text send the picture, send the joke. Because that's also part of the relationship. And obviously the work will get done as the work gets done, but don't take this time and let your insecurity about the distance turn you into somebody that you don't recognize. I think, even when you're sending a funny video or a link, it also just shows you're thinking of that person, and that works personally and professionally. And it also, I think, it allows you to maintain the intimacy of the relationship throughout this pandemic.
Yeah. Great.
Do we open up for questions?
Yeah, I think it's time.
Go ahead. All right.
Great. Essentially, you have validated everyone's feelings and how the dynamic that's happening with their executive and their team with the under communication. So thank you for that. Everyone's really excited to hear that they're not alone in this. So here's a question from Renee. She says, this is exactly how I feel. My boss is overwhelmed and I feel like I could do more and don't want to bother him. What is the best way to approach this conversation without seeming weak? For either one of you.
About seeming weak? Was that the end of it?
Yeah, yes, about seeming weak, yeah.
I just want to make sure I heard it. I think the establishing some check-ins would be probably helpful because, if the sense is that your executive is overwhelmed and you don't want to add to that, that's where the check-ins come in. And so you're not bombarding them with more emails and texts saying, what can I do? What can I do? It's setting up a call, have a little agenda ready with some points you want to cover, and then ask them also to prepare an agenda. So, Nate will take notes on his phone to get ready for our calls. So he's ready to ask me questions during our check-ins, and then you're both prepared, and the executive, he or she can decide what to delegate and say, like, you can take this off my plate. That would be fantastic. But it's hard to ask those questions with emails, I think, where it's like you get a check-in time, and that's when you can sort of do the download.
And send the agenda prior to the call, even if it's 10 minutes. Just send the agenda like you do, Kelly, saying I want to cover these 5 things. And so and also I think in times of great stress, people all handle it differently. All people handle it differently, but keep it clean. I would keep it pretty pointed and pretty targeted towards the topics that you need to cover. I do take issue with the seeming weak part of the question, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is the birthplace of everything that matters. It's the birthplace of creativity. It's the birthplace of real intimacy. It's the birthplace of successful working working relationships. So there is no weak. The truth is that that is empowering, and that is to admit that you feel insecure or feel confused or feel useless is the most empowering thing that you could possibly do. And your executive should understand that. And I think they would even understand it even more if you follow what Kelly just suggested doing, by taking control of the situation, setting up a check-in, and sending those agendas prior to that check-in, because it shows that you're solving your own problem, essentially.
Yeah, it's a display of initiative that I think everybody would appreciate.
100%.
Well, and the other questions that we get a lot through these, through the registrations, how do I add value? So even in the check-ins, if they could show some sort of value to, like, let me take something off your plate, anything like that, they're going to respond. Great too. Tanya has a question for you, Nate. My office too was forced to work from home during COVID-19. I work for a busy CEO. She tried to reach me a few times on Palm Sunday, but missed her calls and emails because that is my sacred Sunday. CEO was upset and sent me a few negative, harsh emails to which I responded to at 7:40 a.m. Monday. I don't think it's fair to have my cell attached to me some Sundays. How do I respond professionally to my CEO to establish boundaries?
Can we ask a quick follow-up question? How long have they worked together?
Tanya, can you tell us how long you've been working together? It'll take her a second to
Yeah,
respond
no
to that. Mm-hmm.
You know,
My feeling on that,
well,
and it like, yeah, go.
no, go ahead, Cal. I know what you're going to say.
You know, I mean, you know, my favorite word is boundaries. But I think that might be where there's some more communication needed. And, you know, if they haven't worked together for very long, that might be a case where the executive doesn't know that that's a boundary that they crossed. So, you know, that's another point where you have to talk, you know, clearly and honestly and say, like, I really need my evenings, but if it's an emergency, call or text me. And maybe if it was an emergency, that's a different situation. But that's where I would lead that is to have a conversation about, like, this is something that's important to me. These are my boundaries, with the caveat of, you know, emergency situations.
Yeah, she says 7 years.
Where that landed. 7 years. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
7 years. Yeah, that is interesting to me. You know, listen, I mean, I think, you know, I have tried, I think being an assistant is can be one of the hardest jobs on earth. You know, our demands never end. They range from the personal to the professional to crisis management to financial assistance and notaries and, you know, baby advice. I mean, it literally knows no boundaries. And I think that it really is very important to have a long-term financial relationship and professional relationship to establish those boundaries and feel comfortable sticking to them. You know, I do respect Kelly's boundaries 99.9% of the time. And even when there's a terrible situation, like we were burglarized, for instance, and I called Kelly in the middle of the night, we were out of town. She had a broken foot. She went, you know, it was awful. But I was conscious of the fact that Kelly didn't owe me being there in my home with my children at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whatever it was in the morning. So, you know, it was a favor. It was above and beyond what should and could be expected. You know, listen,
but in no world would I have not gone. I mean, you know,
right.
this, like, you know, in no world it's like,
I think
but still.
You know, so, I mean, those situations come up. I think it's really more about identifying how frequent those situations do come up. And I know that everybody's nervous about money and the economy. I am as well at the moment. I would say sort of get through this and potentially have that conversation after. But I'm not sure that that's the right person you should be working for.
Good point.
And maybe the consideration too is this a reaction to the current situation? Like, is this sort of like a panic attack moment where they needed someone? They need, like, it was like just a moment where they were panicking and, you know, operating under duress. And if it's a one-time thing, it happens. I think there's a little bit of patience and understanding that goes into it. But yeah, it's a tricky time. And, you know, if you're working together for a really long time, you feel like family, and you know, we're all the most honest with our family. Like, that's why kids come home from school and freak out on their moms when they're like perfect at school, because that's where they're comfortable. And so maybe that's where the executive is comfortable expressing something to this person who's been their confidant for years and years.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I think I want to respect you guys' time. I want to mention something from Colleen, another Colleen, not my Colleen. She says, this session with Kelly and Nate has really exceeded my expectations. So much valuable insight has been shared. Thank you so much. And we're getting lots of comments like that. I think you're really, truly validating what people are feeling right now. And the fact that you did this almost a year ago is helping everybody shorten that ramp to get to where you guys are now. So thank you. We'll bring Bonnie back on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Can we give them virtual applause? Oh my gosh, Nate, Kelly, it was amazing. You validated so much of the feelings that are happening out in the world. And so thank you for kind of straightening that out and helping our community in such a big way. So do you have any last words before we say goodbye to you today?
No, it's been a great pleasure to be asked to be a part of this. Thank you for the invitation. And I do hope that, that as this passes, that everybody's staying safe and sort of respecting the social distancing. I think we will be out of this at some point, and I think that the more organized we can be, and the more direct we can be, and the harder the conversations, if they need to be had, are had, the stronger we'll all come out of this collective situation.
Yeah.
I echo the sentiment, and nobody's alone in this. Nobody, reach out, do what you can. It's easy to feel alone in this job, and especially in this new remote working environment. So reach out whenever you need it.
And can I just thank you once again? Yeah, your vulnerability in sharing what happened in that. I mean, we could feel the discomfort of that conversation that you had last summer. And thank you so much for sharing it, because we don't often get to hear those kinds of details, and they matter so much because those kinds of conversations are happening everywhere and need to happen. So we're very grateful that you shared so honestly with us.
Pleasure.
All right, guys. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
So grateful. Oh my gosh, guys. Hopefully everybody got a lot out of that discussion with Kate, Nate, and Kelly. Kate and Millie.
I can attest we've got lots of questions. So we'll compile the questions and we'll get some responses for you guys. So thank you guys for engaging behind the scenes.
Yeah, Kelly is so generous. Thank you, honey. Kelly is so generous with her wisdom. She's been doing this a long time. She was a celebrity assistant before Nate, and she's just got a lot of great stuff to share. All right, so we are going to move right along. When we looked at the 488 questions, the first question that I'm posing to all of you, B1, that's Bonnie 1, is... Can I interject? I'm so sorry, Bonnie, real quick. Yes, please.
Yeah, so Bonnie's good. So looking at the questions on the screen, if you have an immediate reaction or response to any of these questions, go ahead and respond to them. Bonnie will then comment, and then Colleen will jump in and read some of your responses if you have solutions. Okay, just wanted to say that. Okay, bye.
Right.
I'll be back.
Thanks, Vic. So that's essentially the theme of speed mentoring, is that, we're up to 700 heads are definitely better than one. So what do you think? What do you collectively think from 32 countries? What can be done about managing the uncertainty, the anxiety, my kids, job insecurity, lack of communication with execs, and stress during this time? What are some of the things that you're doing that are actually working? Because, we know so please enter your answers, and Colleen is going to help us reveal them, what you come up with. As those answers are coming in, though, let me just say that, as assistants and as the constituents of this workplace, whether you're a recruiter in HR, a leader, that we need to expose the problem, but isn't it great that we can together come up with some solutions? There's everything from, seeking a mental health professional. Everybody needs a little extra help sometime. And a lot of mental health professionals are volunteering, not necessarily charging money. But in addition to that, you have a community of assistants who are your fellow SMEs, your SME, your subject matter experts, and we need to mentor each other. And this is certainly one case where we can help each other tremendously in this environment. One last thought before, Colleen, we open it up to what we're hearing from the community, is the idea that, it doesn't matter how big your team is, that this situation we're in, we're going to be working at home for, it looks like, a few more weeks at least. There are no old rules. The rules seem to have, they're gone. Many of them are gone, and we need new ones. So one of the things that assistance teams are doing is figuring out ways to discover from one another what their areas of expertise are. Let us get to know our team even better, because we're going to need each other in new and different ways than what we did before. That whole thing about, well, we always used to do it this way, that's so not happening. So Colleen, let me ask you, what are some of the things you're reading, ma'am?
So I'm seeing a few topics repeated over and over again. A lot of people are mentioning finding the time for social connections via Zoom or phone calls, or however they are connecting with people both on their team and in their personal life. A lot of people are mentioning exercise, meditation, faith, bettering themselves. And then the other one I'm seeing a lot of is structure and routine and controlling what you can.
Yeah, and that's so true, especially if you have kids at home. Like everything, the big common denominator is that 24 hours in a day. That doesn't matter if it's a pandemic or not. That's all we get. And so the question becomes, how are we structuring that time? And my goodness, I'm guilty of it myself for sure, that, the day can fly and you don't necessarily get everything done that you plan to get done. And honestly, I said this on the first webinar, I think we have to cut ourselves a big break. I think and hopefully our leaders will be sensitive to it too. That was so interesting what Nate and Kelly were talking about in terms of, having a great relationship, and then all of a sudden the newness of this extreme situation throws the relationship, the partnership into some kind of turmoil. And they didn't have a pandemic to be dealing with last summer. They were just dealing with living in two separate cities. So, let us be gentle with ourselves as we move through this. Understand it's only been a month. Hasn't it only been like a month that people are working at home? So it's almost like 5 minutes ago that this happened. So it's really, really new. So time management is huge, and to really take a fresh look at what your days look like, and I refer to them as givens. What are the givens? What are the things that absolutely have to happen? Like take a shower, eat from time to time, or not eat too much, and then what things could be pushed. Colleen, anything else you want to share about that?
It's the emphasis on staying positive and how your attitude can really affect your entire life.
Mm-hmm. Big time. Oh my gosh. And what's helpful with that is not staying isolated or alone. So getting on webinars like this, we had a lot of comments that it was just nice to be together. The whole image of 700 people around the world, we're giving each other a virtual hug from 32 countries. I mean, my goodness, that we do, the profession is 95 to 98% female. And we as women sometimes struggle with that, the asking for help part. Again, the rules are gone. I think it's time. And my goodness, one of the things that resonated most with me from Nate was his whole passionate message about vulnerability, which is Brene Brown's whole, message and mantra. It's that vulnerability is not weak. It's not a show of weakness. It actually is a sign of strength. So well done, folks. Let's talk a little bit about B2. After shelter in place is over, what will the new norms, the new rules be? So if you can enter into the chat box what you were thinking about that. Many of us are thinking ahead to when is this going to be over, and when it is over, what is that going to look like? Whatever that is. Are we all going back to the office? And, mixed in with that is B3 about mass transit. And, people were asking, well, I live in a major city. Am I going to go on the subway? Am I going to go on the bus? I mean, certainly with the assistance of the world, it's so expected for you to get granular, for us to, because we're the implementers, we're the builders, we're the ones who are in charge of making it happen. And how does it happen? So Colleen, are we starting to get some input about the future?
We are seeing people suggesting that the physicality of this is going to remain, speaking to hugging and handshakes and wearing of masks. They think that those will be really shifting. And then a lot of people talking about the trust and communication that is required to be successful right now is going to linger, and therefore make working from home and working remotely more popular in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I heard Dr. Fauci say that he thinks shaking hands should be a thing of the past. Like, can you imagine no more shaking hands? I mean, wow, that's a big deal. I mean, some people teach classes on how to do that properly. Yeah, you know what I heard yesterday? A couple of things about the future and beyond this crisis is that many airlines are severely going to be cutting their schedules. And so if your executives have traveled a lot, and we speakers travel a lot, that it just simply may not be as easy or as possible because the airlines are literally cutting their schedules. But, what the industry that is ramping up is private air travel. Private airplanes are experiencing an increase. So that might be a whole big area for assistants to study up on, private aviation. That's a whole big thing. We talk about that at Be the Ultimate Assistant. The other thing, and then before we turn it back to Colleen, is about onboarding. So interesting that I was talking with a recruiter yesterday who was saying that companies want to hire right now, but they're choosing not to, not because they don't have the money, but because they don't have a way to onboard these people properly. Isn't that interesting? So if you are an assistant who can start putting your mind to how to onboard people virtually, that's going to be a gap. I refer to those things as gaps. Where are the gaps going to be? And the assistants who can fill those gaps will increase your value, your relevance, and certainly productivity. Colleen, any other interesting comments there about the future, about what this new normal is going to look like?
One that really struck me, somebody mentioned that companies will take sickness and health much more seriously. They will be like, go home, don't come in if you're sick at all. A lot of us go to work even with a cold. That won't be happening as much anymore in the future. Right.
The government is scrambling to ramp up some new guidelines for essential workers to go back to work. And so things like taking your temperature when you even enter the building. I mean, this is really going to look very differently. And you've got to know that it's going to be assistants who are going to be very big part of this. So, Vickie, I'm going to turn that over to you because I know you've got some really interesting things to share. And I want to thank our audience so much for your comments, and we will be sending them all to you. So this doesn't end here.
Yeah, we'll probably have like 1,000 entries and responses this time. Perfect. Thanks, Fawn. We've got about 20 minutes until we end. I'm going to go ahead and share with you the results from our technology questions that we had when you registered. So I was asking you about your work, what computer, what technology, what device are you using now that you're working from home? If you're using a company laptop, a company issued laptop, or a personal computer that you work for a company, but you're using a personal computer. You work for yourself, you're using a personal computer. You are unemployed using a personal computer, and another scenario. So I'm curious, for those that said another scenario, what is that scenario? I'm so curious what that is. So if you are not using a company laptop, or you're not using a personal laptop, what other scenario is there? So let me know that. So that was interesting to me. And then the virtual platform, let me make sure that's going. What are you using for, what platform are you using? If you're using Office 365, the Microsoft productivity platform, 71% of you, G Suite, iCloud, other. Again, I want to know what that other is. I'm so curious if you're not using Office 365, G Suite, or iCloud. So if you're not using Microsoft, Google, or Apple, what productivity platform are you using? And then some of those that said either unemployed or no answer. Okay, perfect. Some of you might say like multiple devices. Okay, so here are the questions. I put 2 on here, so I wasn't sure how much time we would have with our special guest. So we had a lot of questions about the new workflow. So I have some ideas on what your new workflow might look like being in a virtual environment. But if you have ideas on going paperless, were you paperless before and now you're like, yay, thank goodness we were paperless? Were you not paperless before and now you're having to be paperless now? What are you doing to solve that problem? What are you doing? The other questions were providing materials for virtual meetings. So how is that being solved? I have questions, I have responses about that. Keeping up with extra emails and team responsiveness. So anything regarding the new workflow. So I have a quick response while you guys are posting your answers or ideas. I'm working with a lot of EA and executive teams about moving from that paper-based system to a virtual digital paperless system. And essentially, you have to really become an expert with links. So your documents and materials should be in a cloud-based location, whether it's OneDrive, Google Drive, Teams, and get really well-versed on how to get a link to a document and put that inside the meeting request so that anyone internal that's attending the meeting can click on the link and then access the materials. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do that. And then the other idea is, especially for those people that are external to the organization, obviously you're going to have to put a copy of the document as an attachment. So let me move over to Outlook real quick and over to my meeting. Perfect. Okay. So here's the speed mentoring webinar. So let's say this is what I'm going to put on our calendars for Bonnie and me and Colleen, as well as Nate and Kelly. So all of us, so only Colleen and I work in the organization, work in Red Cape, and then Bonnie works externally, but she has a membership to our team environment. So what we would do is we put materials for meeting. Here's the link to the slides. Here's the link to that Word document with the questions and responses. And to grab the link, so if I wanted to go get the agenda, a couple ways you can grab the link. I'm going to just go to Word. Here is, let's say this is our document. So there's a share button, whether you're using Google Docs or G Suite, iCloud, or Microsoft, there's always a share button. So you're going to click on the share button. And within, it looks like I'm not connected locally. Connected online to this on the drive, cloud-based drive. So then I would look at the permissions, identify what permissions I need to be, and then at the very bottom, it should say like get link or copy link. So copy the link to the clipboard, and then I could do Control K. I already have a link available, and then I could do Control V. So Control K, so I highlight the word agenda, Control K, and then Control V, there's my link, and click OK, and then that will take me to the agenda, whether I'm looking at it on my phone or any of my devices. Another way you could do this is on the Insert tab, you go to Attach File, and you can connect either recent items, go browse your PC. So let's say I want to do, let's do this one. And then since I'm using Teams and Microsoft Office 365, I can say share a link or attach as a copy. If I'm sharing the link, that means everyone in my organization has access. Well, it depends on what the permission level is, but I'm going to share a link assuming that anyone attending this meeting is internal, and I could share the link and they'd be in the latest and greatest version of the file. And then I could say, or I could say attach as a copy. So if I say attach as copy, this means they're going to get a static copy of the document. And if anyone makes any changes to this document, this one will not be updated. These will be updated, any link, but if you put a copy of the document, it will not be updated. It's important that you master that, that information or that knowledge, the differences between a link and a copy. And then the other thing, what people are doing is they're using OneNote. So let's say, excuse me, I just want to refer people back to OneNote, and maybe I have a printout of the materials in OneNote. So if I go over to my OneNote, here's an example of a printout. All I did was I copied a PDF, and then I hit paste in here, and it asked me if I wanted to print it out, and I said yes, print it out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click the page in OneNote and say copy link to page, and then it gives me a link. And then I could say printed files in OneNote, assuming everyone would have access. I don't have time to show access levels in this session, but that's what I would do. And so when I click on that, it will then launch OneNote, assuming they have access to that. So those are some of my ideas. Colleen, what do you have from people for the first question on workflow?
We have a lot of people that are loving Microsoft Teams and OneDrive and OneNote. We have some folks that are using Asana and Trello and Box and some other cool features like those.
Perfect, perfect. So Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, iCloud Drive, OneDrive, those are all cloud-based drives, and all of them have a share button on that. That's perfect. The other idea is keeping up with extra emails. How are you guys resolving the issue with all these extra emails? I think I mentioned this in the last one, that what Colleen and I do is we don't email each other. And when I said that last time, someone goes, hey, I know that you hate email. Well, I mean, I don't really hate email. There's just a lot of email. So if you're external and you need to contact us, definitely email us. But internally, if we need something, like Bonnie and I were preparing for this session this morning and we needed help from Colleen, so I messaged her in Teams, a team chat. She resolved the issue and it was done. We don't have to clean up any email communication or threads going back and forth. So I would use emails when you need to copy or BCC someone. Just try to create a streamlined process of when you use email. And then the team responsiveness, someone had asked, like, how do I get team accountability? People aren't responding. They're like MIA. They're not working. I have no idea where they are. I would use @mentions if you're using Teams. So @mention somebody within a discussion or within a team, and then they'll be notified. And the beauty of that, of @mentioning someone in a team environment, is that the other team members see that. So there's a sense of accountability and visibility when someone else is mentioned and you're requesting something of them. So, so those are some ideas. Anything else regarding keeping up with extra emails and team responsiveness, Colleen?
No, it sounds like we have some pretty tech-savvy folks that are using all of the right online platforms.
Whew, okay, good, good, good. Okay, question number 2 for me was, how can I ask for equipment and the support I need? So there were quite a few people, where are my questions? Quite a few people who don't have the resources. Like you saw people that had a personal laptop, even though they work for a company. and then some saying that IT is not providing the support they said that they were going to need. So we have to realize that everyone is being bombarded right now. We've all made a change. And so the workflow is going to be a little rocky. So if support isn't giving you, if IT support isn't giving you the support you need, then maybe you can potentially just, first of all, give them a break. They might be dealing with some stuff, especially with everyone working remotely. And then circle back with them and just what are some other ideas from you guys of how to ask for support? One idea would be is you can create some guidelines, whatever the technical requirements. You can even ask, like, are there technical requirements? What are the guidelines? What are the best practices to work securely and effectively from home? What should I be using? What should I not use? Ask IT for a list. Like, what are the best practices? What are the resources I need? And I'm sure that they will put that together. Like, we're putting things together all the time. Like, what do you need minimally to work remotely? And I have a LinkedIn article about that. So I'm sure your IT, hopefully, if not, we can help you. What are some ideas from you guys? Colleen, does anyone else have ideas on how they can ask for the equipment and support?
Not coming in yet, no.
Okay. So we'll add those ideas. So if you have asked, if you personally have asked, like, gotten the resources you need, if you got the laptop that you needed, the software that you needed, share with us some ideas, because people are struggling to get those resources. So those are the two things I had. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Vic, if I may, I've heard from several assistants whose companies leaders have, and one of these I heard from 2 weeks ago, that they're giving $500, just no questions asked, for assistance to buy whatever it is that they need to make it work at home. And sometimes that means a comfortable chair, or, it could mean the technology, but certainly the company should pay for that. We're in this thing for a while, so it could be that if this is not being offered automatically, please know that you can quote me on it and say that there are companies that are doing this, and it's empowering assistants to do their jobs. And because it's certainly a time saver, not a time waster, if you have the right tool for the right job, right, Vic?
Right. Well, and I would say, if you did have extra funds, definitely get a second monitor if you had the room for it, like 2 monitors, because that definitely helps you be productive. But the very, very minimum, like, everyone should have a work laptop, and because it's important that everyone is working securely with their Wi-Fi. Make sure they have the password, like things like that. Like, what are the minimum requirements to work from home? Your IT team should be providing that. Strong Wi-Fi password. Ask them to do a lunch and learn and go through all the things, the checklist. And then I think that will inspire even the technology department to actually come up with maybe a budget or help or support for people. And certainly if you have your executives support, that will help too.
Mm-hmm. I think all of this speaks to a really big need for empathy. The idea that leaders are scrambling to react and respond to this crisis, as are the assistants. And Nate and Kelly certainly highlighted that. And the imagination can go crazy. I mean, it was so amazing to hear them say, there were trust issues and worry. It just could be that leaders don't know what you need. And I can't urge you I'm the queen of, speak up and find your voice and say what's on your mind. This is the time. This is absolutely the time that, if that was a problem before, there's every reason to believe it's a problem now. But the doors are open now, I believe. The stress is high, of course, so we need to choose our moments, but you know how to do this. Assistants are very high EQ. possess very high EQ, so you'll hopefully figure out your moment to ask.
That reminded me to mention, a lot of you are asking, how do I add value during this time? How do I use this time to up-level my skills? How do you run virtual meetings? And so Bonnie and I were talking about this is, you know, right now, especially with people sharing their screen, their digital fluency is on display. So I don't know if you've been attending meetings. So you see me even struggling sometimes moving to the next slide or getting from Outlook or getting back to my PowerPoint. It's important that when you're presenting virtually, that you know how to navigate around your computer. But what's happening is, because we've never been in this, most of us have never been in this kind of environment, and we're sharing our screen, it's evident that we may not have the skills. So one way, if you are nervous about putting your skills on display in a virtual session, especially a lunch and learn, is to host a lunch and learn with some of your favorite team members and share some sort of expertise. Like, take 5 or 10 minutes to share something like, okay, I'm really good at PowerPoint, so I'm going to show you some tips in PowerPoint. And that's going to help you practice running virtual meetings yourself and sharing your screen. And you're adding value to the company as a whole and as the group as a whole. And you're all learning from each other and gaining additional skills. So that's one way to add value, practice, so that when you're called upon to really present, you will have those skills and that extra practice. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and for the assistants who are saying that you don't have enough to do, there are so many ways to take a fresh look at what was going on pre-crisis and find those gaps. If it's onboarding, then start putting your mind on that. If it's, you know, there's going to probably be another crisis down the road. How do we do it better next time? How do we do it better? You know, if there were a whole lot of meetings that your executive was booked to do and they all got canceled, or many of them did, it could be, okay, how do we reimagine them and have them happen now in the next 1 to 3 months? Or how about those potential clients or those people that your executive didn't even have time to call or to contact? Maybe now would be the time to make that list and say, do we want to connect with so-and-so? And that's proving your value. That's being a strategic business partner, a person who is really looking out for ways to save money, how to make money, how to save time, how to be extra efficient and productive. Okay. So I think we're about to wrap up.
Yes, I have a couple of slides.
Yes,
I want to tell you guys. So for those of you wanting to take manual processes and convert it to a virtual environment, I am going to be teaching a session at Lucy Breezier's conference, digital conference called ENGSTROM Global, and that's in June. It is called Digital Tips for Virtual Partnership. So I'm presenting that session. And then for those of you that need more help with Office 365, we have an on-demand course, a $29 class for both PC and Mac users. I'm a Mac user as well. I have one right there. And with 2 modules plus a bonus module. So if you're interested in working with me and learning how to use all this technology on your computer, definitely sign up for that course. And then I think that is it. We don't have any, that's our last slide.
No time
we'll make sure
for
you guys
that.
get the link. Yeah.
I want to just say that in this time, many leaders are very supportive of you as assistants, continuing your professional development. And we're all pivoting, right? So Vickie's class is fabulous. And, you know, she and I are both now training corporate teams virtually. So we're both encouraging you to connect not only with us, but with all of your favorite trainers and speakers who are all working virtually as we are. And they would love to hear from you, to brainstorm and to just talk through what are the issues that you're dealing with and who would be the right person to help you solve that.
I want to add to that, Lonnie, because there was a question in there about someone's interested in doing some mentoring with you, like they want you to be their mentor. You have a mastermind, right?
Yeah, I do one-on-one mentoring over Zoom or Skype, whatever you prefer. And I do small groups, one-on-one, and certainly corporate events. So, you know, that is a pleasure and an honor.
You have one coming
Vic,
up.
if we can go.
You have one coming up, yeah?
Actually, yeah,
no?
I'm not going to save that.
Okay.
No, I'm going to save that one. But I am speaking at Lucy's Global Conference also on June 20th and 21st. So Vic, could we go on to this as we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, those who weren't in the last session, if you go to weather.com on your phone or get the weather.com app, not the weather app that comes with your phone, but actually the weather.com app, bottom right-hand corner, you can click on that and put in your zip code or any zip code around the country, and it will tell you how many cases, give you all the metrics on what's happening in that community. And so we invite you to connect with us on LinkedIn. The correct LinkedIn link for me will be in your follow-up email. Post any jobs on LinkedIn and tag both of us because we know lots of people are out of work. We'll be sending out the replay, and it probably just take about a couple of hours to send that out. We're doing this every other week. We might have another celebrity guest. We don't know yet. So Thursday, April 23rd is the next one. And just reach out and let us know how we can help you at all. So that's
this is one of my favorite quotes. I said I never understand. That is a typo. It's meant to say never underestimate the power of a small group of committed people to change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has. Now look at how this woman has my back. She's fixing my typo. You, my friends, everyone on this call is that small group of committed people. You are the backbone of the company. You are the virtual right arms to your executives. You're the face of the company culture, and you have the power to change the world of your company. You have power and you bear influence. You still see and hear most everything, especially if you have access to email. So with that, Vickie and I hope you have gotten a great deal out of today's session. We're wishing you a happy, to the degree you can, a happy Administrative Professionals Month and week. We hope, just because of the situation we're in, that event does not go by without acknowledgement, because the assistants of the world are holding companies up, and you deserve celebration and validation and acknowledgement. So I hope that happens not only in April during Administrative Professionals Month, but every day of the year. And this Sunday is Easter. Wishing our friends who are celebrating Easter, happy Easter, and those celebrating Passover, happy Passover. And Vickie, I'm very grateful to you for jumping in here. Thank you all for listening. Vickie, thank you so, so much.
Thanks, Bonnie. You too. You too. And thanks to Nate and Kelly for joining us today. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This concludes today's mentoring session. We'll see you next time. This concludes the call. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, Vic. Bye, Nate and Kelly.
Bye, Nate and Kelly. Bye, Colleen.
Bye, Colleen.